to share one room?
My name is Sarah, and I'm 32 years old, working as a marketing director at a mid-sized tech company. I've spent the last 5 years building walls around myself, professional, emotional, all of it. After my divorce, I decided that focus and ambition were safer bets than people. My boss, Michael, was part of that safe equation. He was my superior, untouchable, and that made it easy to admire him from a distance without complication. Until we ended up in the same hotel room. The conference in Portland was supposed to be routine. 3 days, endless panel discussions, networking cocktails I'd rather skip. I took the elevator up to the 14th floor, my key card in hand, mentally rehearsing how I'd spend the evening, probably room service and emails. I slid the card into slot 1412, and the light flashed green. The room was modest but nice. I wheeled my suitcase inside, set down my conference bag, and was just about to shower when I heard the key turn in the lock behind me. "Oh, hey," a man's voice. Then silence. A beat. Then, "This is not my room." I turned, and there was Michael, my boss, standing in the doorway with his own suitcase, looking equally confused and apologetic. Michael was the kind of man you didn't expect to look flustered. At the office, he was always composed, confident, the kind of person who walked into meetings like he already knew how everything would end. But standing there in the doorway of our shared hotel room, he looked genuinely thrown. "I'm so sorry," he said immediately. "The hotel probably double-booked. I can call down and figure this out." "Yeah, of course," I said, trying to ignore the flutter in my chest that had nothing to do with reason. "That's probably the best idea." He nodded and pulled out his phone, but even as he dialed, I could see the irritation crossing his face. He was on hold for 7 minutes. 7 minutes of me sitting on the edge of the bed, pretending to check my emails while internally spiraling about how awkward this was going to be at the office. When he finally spoke to someone, I could hear the frustration creeping into his voice. "There's no other room. Not on this floor, not on any floor." Another pause. "Okay. Yeah. Tomorrow. Understood. Thank you." He hung up and looked at me with a kind of defeated resignation. They overbooked. Completely. There's literally nothing available in Portland tonight. They're offering to move one of us tomorrow morning, or we could. He trailed off, running his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd never seen him make before. It made him seem human in a way that was almost unsettling. "We could what?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "We could just make do. For tonight. I can take the chair, you take the bed. It's completely appropriate, nothing weird about it." He said this all in a rush, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "Unless you want me to sleep in the lobby. I could do that." "Don't be ridiculous," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "There's a queen bed. We're adults. We can share for one night." The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Not because they weren't practical, they were. But because now I had to actually live with them. Michael nodded slowly, visibly relieved but also visibly uncomfortable. "Okay. Good. Thank you. I'll just put my stuff in the bathroom." What followed was the most awkward hour of my professional life. He showered while I worked on my laptop at the small desk, hyper-aware of every sound, every shadow under the bathroom door. When he came out, he was wearing a plain grey t-shirt and pajama pants, and somehow that made everything worse. He looked vulnerable. Real. Not the polished version I saw across conference tables. "You can shower," he said, settling into the armchair with his phone. I grabbed my things and locked myself in the bathroom, letting the hot water run over my face while I tried to get a grip. This meant nothing. He was just a person. My boss. It was one night. Tomorrow it would be fixed and would never speak of it again. Except when I came back out, wrapped in a hotel robe, towel around my wet hair, he was sitting in the dark watching the city lights, and he looked so tired that I almost forgot to be nervous. "Long day?" I asked, surprising myself again. He turned, and there was a moment where his expression shifted from distant to actually present. "Long year, honestly," he said. The merger negotiations have been killing me. I haven't slept properly in weeks. I found myself moving toward the second chair without thinking. We sat in silence for a moment, the city humming below us. I didn't realize you were that stressed about it, I said quietly. You always seem so, in control. He let out a small laugh, but it didn't sound happy. That's the job, right? To seem like you know what you're doing even when you're terrified you're going to screw everything up. Are you terrified? I asked, and there was something in his voice that made me ask it like I actually cared. Because I did. I was realizing that somewhere between professional respect and 5 years of distance, I'd started to care about this man more than was probably wise. Sometimes, he admitted. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time all evening. But less tonight, actually. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. More charged. I could feel my heart doing something stupid in my chest. We should probably sleep, I said, even though neither of us moved. Yeah, he said. We should. But we didn't. Not right away. Instead, we sat there in the dark for another 20 minutes, and we talked. Actually talked. He told me about his ex-wife, about his 7-year-old son who was staying with his parents this weekend, about how he'd started this job wanting to prove something and somewhere along the way forgotten why. I told him about my divorce, about the way I'd buried myself in work to avoid feeling the weight of it. I think, Michael said slowly, that somewhere in the last 5 years I stopped seeing my employees as people. And I especially stopped seeing you as a person. What do you see when you look at me? I asked. I don't know why I asked it. Maybe because it was dark. Maybe because we were trapped here together and honesty felt inevitable. He was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, for a long time, I saw someone brilliant and driven and thoroughly unavailable. Someone who put a lot of effort into seeming like they had everything handled. Someone I recognized because I'm the same way. My throat felt tight. And now I see someone who's tired. Someone who's brave. Someone who's been carrying a lot alone. And I see someone I'd like to know better. If that's not completely inappropriate to say. It might be, I whispered. I know, he said back. But I'm saying it anyway. We actually did sleep after that. We both needed it too badly to do anything else, and there was something almost more intimate about how carefully we arranged ourselves in that bed. Him on one side, me on the other, a distance between us that felt both like nothing and everything. I woke sometime in the middle of the night, and the city lights were casting everything in a pale blue. Michael was sleeping, and in sleep, he looked like his son probably did, younger, without all the weight he carried. At some point, sometime before dawn, he'd rolled closer. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel his warmth, smell the hotel shampoo in his hair. I didn't move away. When morning came, real light bleeding through the curtains, he woke first. I felt him go still when he realized how close we were. Hi, he said. It was such a simple word, but it carried everything from last night. Hi, I said back. I don't want to assume anything, he started, and I appreciated that he was trying to do the right thing. We worked together. There were complications. Lines we probably shouldn't cross. I know, I said. But I want to anyway. He smiled then, and it was the realest thing I'd seen from him in 5 years. When he kissed me, it was slow and careful, like he was still asking permission. I answered by deepening it, by letting myself finally admit that I'd been interested in this man for longer than I wanted to think about. When we broke apart, we didn't say anything for a moment. We didn't need to. The reality of the situation was already crashing down around us. What do we do? I asked finally. I don't know, he admitted. I probably shouldn't have done that. There are HR implications. Company policy. I know. But I'm not sorry. I know that too, I said, and I found myself smiling. Neither am I. He was quiet for a moment. I need to think about this. About how we make this work if we want to. Because I do want to. But it has to be done right. You know that. I nodded. As much as I wanted to ignore complications, I understood. So what do? We go to our new room. We get through this conference like nothing happened. And tomorrow, when we're back at the office, I'm going to resign from being your direct supervisor. I'll transfer you to another department, or I'll look at other positions. We figure this out the right way. It wasn't the romantic declaration I might have wanted, but somehow it was better. It was real. It was someone willing to change their whole professional structure because they cared about doing this right. Okay, I said. He brushed my hair back from my face, a gesture so tender it made my eyes sting. Okay. Okay, I repeated. We do this the right way. He smiled, and this time it was the smile of someone who'd stopped pretending and started living. We checked out of that room without the hotel ever moving us. There wasn't any point, really. We both needed to process what had happened, what we wanted to happen next. On the flight back to Seattle, he sat in first class and I sat in economy, but when our eyes met across the cabin, there was something settled in my chest that hadn't been there before. A month later, after he'd transferred my supervision and we'd navigated the careful dance of beginning to date someone you respect, we were back in a hotel. Not by accident this time. On purpose. And when he looked at me across the room, there was no hesitation, no doubt, just the clear recognition of two people who'd decided to stop running from each other. Michael fell asleep with his arm around me, and I thought about that first night, about how sometimes the best things in life come from accidents. How sometimes you have to be trapped in the wrong place to find exactly where you're supposed to be. And for the first time in 5 years, I let myself fall asleep without any walls between us. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Hearts community.